Welcome in the arena. My name's Allyson Klein, and today we have a delightful topic for you. I've got Pasha Finkelshteyn with me. He's a developer advocate at BellSoft. Pasha, welcome to the program.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Nice to
You
meet
were,
you, Allyson.
yeah, you're coming to me all the way from Berlin, which is crazy. It's an Friday evening for you, and you're
It
here
is.
to talk to me about what you're up to at BellSoft. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me again.
Tell me what it takes to be a developer advocate, and tell me a little bit about BellSoft.
So it does take all myself. So I am a crazy mix of skills of a developer, public speaker, and people lover, and probably even a little bit people pleaser, but only a tiny bit. And this is what it takes to be a developer advocate. I try to help people, and because I love them. At BellSoft, well, we are a small company, so we develop a JDK, and we also develop our own Linux, and we create Docker images for this Linux and for this JDK. And I'm trying to help BellSoft to suit people better.
Now you go out and talk to developers all the time, more formally at events like DevOps and Spring IO, but also in hallway conversations afterwards, and I'm sure in online conversations all the time. What do these rooms and these conversations tell you about what developer teams really need in terms of the core capabilities for a dashboard or a survey or anything that they're trying to do?
You know, if we speak about hallway conversations, that then the main thing I hear from developers, they want to innovate. Sometimes they can do it, sometimes they can't. Their management can have obviously different attitudes towards it. Because, well, when you want to innovate, you have to have a solid economic basis under it, right? So you need to know why you want to do it. And also, developers care deeply about quality of their software. And sometimes it's being underappreciated by their employers or their managers because they don't see the point in making a high quality software. And this is a very interesting angle to look at developers from, not only like resources, it's mostly about things they care about.
Hmm. Now, tell me a little bit about how BellSoft is involved in Cloud Stack and, cloud to edge platform delivery and put some context around what we're going to explore next in terms of where we're going with software.
Okay, I'm not brave enough to tell where we are going with software. I can try to come up with something, but yeah, what BellSoft does for cloud native things and edge things,
Hmm.
we are trying to provide developers with first secure and second lightweight products that will help them to scale their projects when they need. Let's say it's Black Friday and suddenly you have a huge influx of clients. You obviously don't want to spin up 1,000 servers for 1 hour. It's too long. You need to do it much faster, and you need to scale down it as fast as this too, because Black Friday sadly passes and you don't need all the servers. For that, you should be lean. For that, you should have a solid technological base, I would say. And this is what we do. This is how we help them. We create very small Linux. We are trying to create small Java distributions for them to scale up and scale down faster.
Now, we know that computing is evolving and we understand that, organizations are utilizing edge environments much more in terms of where they're placing workloads. What does that mean in terms of the types of platforms that need to be deployed in real time in this model of Black Friday, or even to meet a particular requirement in real time for a customer utilization, or something that's changing in environment? Can you talk a little bit about how you work with clients in this perspective?
Okay, I should be honest with you. Edge is not something I gave a lot of thought to because this is not our typical client. They usually
Hmm.
do not deploy things on the edge, but it doesn't mean that we won't work for it. I would argue that secure and small solutions are the best for the edge. It's like what you want on the edge. When it comes about your core service somewhere deeply inside your private VPN, you usually can be less cautious with your security. You shouldn't be, but you can be, and a lot of companies will do it. When it's edge, you can bet it will be attacked the first. So it is creating a surface for attack. And sadly, I mean, this is the reality we are living in, and this is when you need secure solutions, right?
So you talk about secure solutions, and I think containers have made things very frictionless in terms of deploying inside of environments. What does that mean for where security decisions have moved to within IT? And do you see more attack fronts coming up?
This is very interesting. So we are talking about shifting security to the left for a long time already. I
Sure.
honestly, I'm like 20 years in IT. The term shifting security to the left was coined, I don't know, 10 years ago. I was trying to shift it to the left long before it. I just didn't know how to call it. What I told my developers and my colleagues, we are responsible for software we ship. And because the management will come for us when there is an issue, we have to know how to handle this issue. If we don't know or if we don't care, we are in trouble. Well, eventually, I mean, not
Mhm.
today. Today we are golden because today we have less work to do, but tomorrow we have to think about tomorrow today.
At Spring IO, you talked about something really interesting. You surveyed 250 Java developers and architects, and 64% had never considered that their Dockerfile might affect their security posture, which is amazing to me that 64% had never considered this fact. Why does that layer stay invisible? And even to strong developers, what does that mean?
It is a very sad thing to say, but even more than 64% of developers on the same Spring IO, it's not on the forum, but this was in hallway conversations. They didn't even know what they deploy to their productions. Like they don't know their base image. They usually don't know the vendor of their JDK, which means these developers are being forced into a very tight frame of you should only write code. We don't care. You should not think about it. We will care about security for you, which is, in my opinion, not true. In my opinion, it will eventually come down to developers. And this is why I'm talking to developers and I'm trying to convince them, hey, it's actually like today it works this way. But when something goes sideways, you will be the person answering uncomfortable questions. And if God forbid you're on call this night, this will be even tougher because it's 3 a.m. and you have to answer questions you didn't even think about. It will be not about like a production code you wrote. It will be about the production code you didn't write or about Docker files you didn't write. You have to know what's running in your production, how it operates, how it's being operated by other people. In a perfect world where we consider DevOps not people but processes, you should be a part of the DevOps processes. You should help, you should work together to do the best production you can.
Yeah. It's interesting. Another thing that you talk about are these gaps between vulnerability being disclosed and patched. And this is something that it took me back. This is a different type of vulnerability, but I was at Intel when Spectre and Meltdown were disclosed. I was working on the Xeon team, and you
Wh-
can imagine when you've got that vulnerability disclosed and not patched or dealt with yet, that is a very vulnerable time for any organization. How do you view this, and where does that window create the most real exposure?
These days, I would say that the answer is the first hours after the exploit being published. So when something is apparently fixed. Okay, so Spectre and Meltdown were quite different, right? Because Spectre and Meltdown, Intel only had workarounds for some time. And they were still workarounds, right? We just close some latches inside the CPU, which drops the performance of our CPU. Still much better than nothing, because if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a security specialist. Spectrum Meltdown allowed to access any data running through CPU or its L1 caches in like real time. What is it close?
I think that is a broad brushstrokes definition of a security vulnerability because of a technology called speculative execution. Yes,
Yes. Oh yeah.
and that was something that has been addressed in new processors and then mitigated through old processors based on what you just talked about, Pasha. But I think that there is a parallel in any software vulnerability where you're in between a period of we've identified a problem and we've patched it and it's no longer a problem. And IT departments are facing that all the time where they know that there's a vulnerability that has been documented and the patch isn't there. And I guess my question for you, from a standpoint of developer advocacy is how do you manage around that? And how do you ensure that you're providing calm in an organization or even, with your client base around these things of, this has been detected, it's been published by the community, and the patch is coming.
I have multiple answers to this question because it heavily depends on technology. Because
Mhm.
for Java, the process is one, and for Linux and, for example, Python, the process is completely different.
Mhm,
For Java, there is a security council for Java, which only discloses issues, vulnerabilities inside it and doesn't share them outside.
mhm,
CVEs are being created. We should probably explain CVEs. CVEs are the vulnerabilities published on special sites for general public to see them, but it doesn't mean that we will publish all the details about how to exploit CV or even which part of the product leads to the CV, which is usually for Java, it is not published. So, and only then they agree on a date when it will be
mhm.
patched. We in Java World we release security patches once per 3 months, and no one from the outside world could pinpoint this particular patch was well,
Right.
probably someone can, but you should be a debug expert on this, fix this particular CVE. So essentially, all the JDKs who are created from OpenJDK are being patched at the same time for the general audience. For Linux and for Python, for example, it's quite different because all the CV, there is no such a lifetime. There is no such life cycle. They are being published and then they're being fixed ad hoc. And this requires from us as a company to be on top of everything going on of all the packages we maintain. For example, again, Python, we have to see that vulnerability is published. Then we have to either come up really, really quick with our own fix for it, or we have to find someone who fixed it. For example, Debian project is a very beautiful example. They're very fast in patching CVEs. Sometimes they help us a lot. We still have to port their patch to our own distribution of Python. We have to port their tests to our Python distribution, and then we will update our repository as soon as possible for our clients, customers, paid, unpaid, all of them to benefit from it immediately. And then after this point, it comes down to the company, to their policies on the updates. Sadly, what I can now observe, many companies are very conservative about updates in their production.
Mhm.
They would hold them, which can actually create additional threats because
Mm,
in the era of AI, everyone tries to exploit anything on the 0 day.
that makes a lot of sense. Now, I want to talk to you more about security, but I do have a question for you, which is, the workloads are changing. Customers are utilizing their cloud stacks for different types of work. Obviously, AI is entering the equation and demanding more from a performance perspective, but also introducing new security risks. How do you see cloud stacks evolving to address this? And what does that mean for somebody who's working in IT that's trying to deploy what's needed for the company and the nature of the workload is morphing in real time?
Okay, I heard several questions there. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
let's try to break them down. Like how cloud stacks are being affected by AI is the first of them, right?
Mhm.
So my observation is the following. People are obviously more productive. Developers are more productive. And what is more important, even non-developers are more productive because these days anyone can pay for cloud code and write a decent software. At least it will be externally decent. Like it will perform its function, but it creates a lot of burdens with hidden burdens. For example, who will review this code? And usually the answer is no one. And if we imagine a situation when a non-professional developer, like manager, I am not trying to say anything ill about managers, but it's like it's not their main area of expertise. They come up with a beautiful product, live coded or AI assisted coded in 2 days, and they want it in production right now. Sometimes pressure can actually make it be a reality, but they usually don't know about hidden risks, about, again, security and also performance and also influence on the environment. I don't mean like how much energy we spend, even though it's a very important thing. I mean how we actually influence our Kubernetes cluster. Will it be healthy? Don't we propagate something we shouldn't? Don't we make assumptions we didn't need to make, and so on? So I would say for now, we are in a risky and slightly dangerous situation when we sometimes don't know what we ship, which in some kind of short perspective, I would say 2-3 years will lead to even more demand in experienced developers. We all see layoffs these days. Sadly, I'm sad for
Mhm.
all of these people being laid off. Sometimes for AI, I think what bigger companies didn't realize yet, they can't just fire people because code reviews didn't go anywhere. They
Right.
are with us forever, and we need more experienced developers. And for that, we actually need to hire junior developers too, who will grow to be experienced developers one day, hopefully.
I also want to talk to you because based in Berlin. Your company's based in the U.S. as an HQ. Um, one of the things that you talked about at DevOps was that many developers couldn't name compliance rules, and one of the things that I want to lean into is compliance as well as sovereignty of data, and how you see that evolving in the landscape of your customers, and what you think about from a standpoint of your Berlin office on how to manage through this from a standpoint of protecting the business.
In Europe, we are coming to a very interesting business point right now because there is a European law called Cyber Resilience Act, CRA for short, which will force every company which ships software or actually hardware to report its vulnerabilities almost live, almost immediately. On the span of 72 hours, all the vulnerabilities should be created in a special European platform for that. And
Mhm.
this information should be open and so on. And I don't know if all our customers or all our potential clients and customers already realized how harsh CRA will be on them. So today they live a beautiful life when they don't need to do anything but update their dependencies time to time to stay secure. Tomorrow in September of 2026, the time comes when we have to report them. And after that, in December of 2027, which is also dangerously close, it's like 1.5 years from now, it will become even stricter than that. Even money flows will be controlled. I can't say that it is related to sovereignty because you can imagine that bigger American corporations, for example, Oracle, they still sell their software on the European market, and CRA is applied to everyone who wants to sell on European market. It means that most big businesses in the world will be affected by it in this way or
Mhm.
another.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Now, you have said that the first priority in terms of engagement in this space is education, and the second is automation. Tell me about why these things are so important and how they lean into the work that you do for BellSoft and your clients.
So look, I do education. Education is essentially part of my job. And some people would even say that this is the main part of my job. I am trying to make people better developers. It is not the only thing I do. I'm actually, as I said, I'm trying to improve our products too. And when I educate people, I want them to be more qualified, to bring me more feedback on what we are doing, to improve our products with their feedback, and to educate them how to use our products. But I think that in the era of AI, education is extremely important because people are, I'm sorry to say this, people are kind of lazy. If we can avoid thinking, many of us, including me, will prefer not to think, but we can't afford it. We have to watch very closely what's going on. We have to constantly learn, and we have to improve on ourselves and on everything created by AI. We still have to improve. We can't blindly ship it. So what I would say that education today is even more important than it was yesterday. Yesterday, you could be a self-grown professional who just kind of knows what they're doing. Today, it's not the case anymore. Today, we have to find ways to grow as fast as industry grows and to grow as fast as computation power grows and everything, AI and so on. And automation is another pillar because the world is too fast and people are
Mhm.
slow, and we only have like essentially we have 16 hours in our days, and we still want to spend some time with our families and so on. And it means that in the world where something happens constantly, constant influx of events every minute, every hour, every day, we can't really be on top of it manually. We have to automate things. We have to monitor things automatically and automatically react to it without spending our cognitive resources and our time resources, and probably for managers without spending our people resources.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's been a fantastic conversation, Pasha. I think that one of the things that I want to make sure that you see here is that your insights are going to benefit our community. And I just have one final question for you. Where should folks go to follow your work and learn more?
The best way to find me is LinkedIn and Twitter, I believe, or you can call it X these days, I believe.
Hmm.
You can also always drop me an email or find me on any messenger available to humanity, I believe. But LinkedIn is the place where I post professional related posts, and I'm always available on the messages there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to speak here.